This is News Today, and my name is Kemini Nyamani Amano. Coming up, Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly denies receipt of a court order to vacate the KJT bus terminal and restore its management to Frico FD Limited. Also ahead, Labour economist and lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana calls for deliberate government policy framework based on research to guide sectors. United The Kumasi High Court has ordered the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly to vacate the KJT bus terminal and restore management to Frico FD Limited. The Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly on Monday, November 11, 2013, took over the management of the facility from Frico. Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly cited the latter's breach of existing contractual agreement. Managers of Frico FD Limited, Frida Dakon, subsequently filed a motion in court to challenge the action taken by the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly. Frico had been managing the bus terminal since 2010, and the company was contracted by the KMA to manage the bus terminal and keep 62% of revenue, while the Assembly takes 28%. Godwin Okuma Nyame is PR for the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly. He's joined us over the telephone. Hello, Godwin.
Hello.
So would we see that KMA vacates the KJT bus terminal?
Good afternoon. As of now, the Assembly has not received the claim or the summons as it is in the grapevine. We have heard it, but we haven't received it. What will happen is that as soon as we receive it, the Assembly will then go ahead to give it to our lawyers for advice. However, should we even receive it, it's not going to be a surprise to us. So we are waiting to receive it, and as soon as we receive it, we'll make sure that we give it out to our lawyers to look at.
Right. Did we follow due diligence in abrogating this contract with Frico FD?
Yes, of course. Due diligence was done. The Assembly did not just wake up one day and say, let us go to the terminal to take over from the Frico FD Limited.
How
due diligence was done. And what I want to also add to is that we want to assure the public that as of now, the Assembly is in full control of the KJT terminal, and we are collecting our tools. Our men are on the ground, and we are collecting the tools at the terminal.
Many thanks, Godwin. Godwin Okuma Nyame is Public Relations Officer for the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly. We move on to some other story. And the issue of salary for Ghanaian members of parliament resurfaced Tuesday after Minority Leader and members of parliament for Swami Member of Parliament for Swami Osei Chairman Sabunsu called on the nation to objectively and impartially deal with the low salaries of members of Parliament. Speaking at the 4th Liberty Lectures organized by the Dankwa Institute in Accra, Osei Chairman Sabunsu stated that MPs must be adequately resourced to help fight against corruption. But a development consultant, Ebenezer Anua Omat, however, thinks Ghanaian MPs' salary must be matched with those of public sector. He was also of the view the MPs should be placed on the single spine salary structure.
But why would we situate Ghanaian MPs' salary within the context of salaries of other countries? Why not against the public sector in Ghana? I believe, really, that MPs are public servants, and they work in the interest of the public, just like all other public servants. Maybe their jobs should also be evaluated, okay, in the same way as the jobs of other public servants have been evaluated, so that the same or similar compensable factors like education, like experience, like mental requirements, like contribution to national development, like as I said, the personnel or the lecturers that they supervise or they work like their working conditions, just like public servants in Ghana. In this way, we can have a scientific and an objective, defensible, equitable process determining the relative worth of the MP's salary. So that if we say an MP currently who is earning about 7,200 Ghana cedis, okay, and you compare the work that he does with another person in the public service, then we can say that his salary is low, okay, or is small. We need to put the MPs on the single spine salary structure. Maybe Fair Wages Commission might be charged to do that. And the process of doing that is to evaluate their jobs, just like all other jobs for public servants have been evaluated. Then we'll be able to say that given the kind of experience they have, the kind of work they are doing, the complexity of their work, the mental requirement, the physical requirement, then they will be put at a certain scale, and then we can compare them with those in the public service. That is the way to go, in my view.
The 2013 Afrobarometer report has said large numbers of people surveyed in 34 African countries say their governments are losing the fight against corruption. According to the report, 56%, representing 51,000 people surveyed, said their governments were doing a very poor job in fighting corruption, scoring the highest marks and attaining new highs on the Corruption Perception Index are the police, who are deemed to be the most corrupt public officials across all the countries surveyed. 43% of the survey participants said that the police officers were involved in corruption, with the Nigerian police obtaining the highest marks of 78%, followed by Kenya with 69%, and then pairing with Sierra Leone, which also scored 69%. Ghana was listed as one of the 5 countries from a total of 16 countries surveyed where corruption is perceived to be worsening. The other countries are Lesotho, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Kenya. 23% of Ghanaians surveyed said they paid bribes in the past 1 year. This compared favorably with countries such as Nigeria, Kenya, and Sierra Leone, where as high as 35%, 56%, and 63% of the participants respectively said they had paid bribe in the past year. So there's been significant improvement in transparency in the management of the country's oil and gas sector. And that's according to the IEA Petroleum Transparency and Accountability Index report for 2012. According to the Institute, transparency went up to 69%, up 10% from the 2011 figure of 59%.
The Track Index is a project undertaken by the Institute of Economic Affairs Ghana to promote transparency and accountability in the management of Ghana's oil and gas resources and to enhance the level of responsibility on the part of the policymakers. The primary objective is to develop qualitative and quantitative indicators that can be used to monitor aspects of the oil and gas value chain, namely revenue transparency, expenditure transparency, and contract transparency, as well as transparency in the management of the heritage and stabilization funds. Visiting research fellow at the IEA, Professor Asafo Ajayi, says this year's findings are encouraging.
First question is, are the rules disclosed to the public? The answer to that is yes, because the PRMA actually sets out the rules governing the funds. But this is where we believe that more information is better. Because despite the fact that there is information on the PRMA, I think we need more detailed information. Second question deals with the publication of information. Basically, is information on the funds, is that provided to the public? Last year, based on the analysis we've done, we believe that the Bank of Ghana has met all its obligations, all its reporting obligations. So it's published its semi-annual reports for 2012. Anybody can go to the Bank of Ghana's website and download the semi-annual reports. So that has been beautifully done, and so we rewarded them with a 100% score. Third question is, are the funds used for the intended purposes? Again, yes, because it clearly says who is to manage that, and that's the Investment Advisory Commission, which has been formed. And as far as we know, the monies have been saved in the two funds, the Stabilization Fund and the Heritage Fund.
The sector's challenge, however, is managing the high expectations of Ghanaians.
All of a sudden, we discover oil, and people think that's the end of poverty. And people in Western region especially are thanking their stars. But the reality is that the perceptions of the stakeholders may be at variance with the realities on the ground. And this is where we believe transparency comes in. Because our thesis is that if you provide adequate, sufficient, and clear information to the public, then they'll be able to form realistic expectations equitably. Already we had some chiefs from the Western region demanding 10% of the revenues. You would have people from Upper West and Upper East also demanding their share. So the challenge for the government is how does it, share this wealth equitably.
Etonamsi, Joy News.
The government of Ghana and its Ivorian counterpart have agreed a roadmap to resolve the maritime boundary disputes between the two countries. Representatives from the two countries, as a result, are to meet at boundary pillar 55, the area under contention, by the end of this month to map out the maritime boundary delimitations in accordance with international maritime law. The roadmap was agreed at a meeting held here in Accra between representatives from the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and their counterparts from Ivory Coast. The dispute is linked to the discovery of oil in commercial quantities in that area.
Officials indicated they will hold two more meetings in Abidjan in January and March 2014 to finally put the matter to rest.
They have to do certain things. For instance, they have chosen and agreed to visit the boundary post pillar 55 between the 26th and 28th of this month. They have agreed on where they should meet. They've agreed that when they meet there, they move to the site together and establish the geographical coordinates of the boundary post 55. They've also agreed to exchange base data on the boundary. The boundary between Ghana and the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire. And again, that is enough consensus building.
Meanwhile, the prospecting of oil at the boundary pillar 55 is likely to continue in a fashion that will not create tensions between the two countries.
They're looking at the practice at international law. That's what they are looking at. They are not using their own discretion to arbitrarily determine the boundary. What is the practice at international law? What does the UN Convention on Law of the Sea say? And how do we apply this to delimit our boundary? That's what they are looking at.
Work on the maritime delimitations between the two countries is expected to be completed by close of year 2014, so the two countries can continue producing crude oil in commercial quantities in a peaceful manner.
Several physically challenged students of the Senior High Technical School for the Deaf at Mampo in the eastern region face the risk of being knocked down by speeding vehicles. This is because the students, mostly hearing and speech impaired, have to walk over 2 kilometers along the shoulders of the Abri-Mampo highway to attend classes. Yafusu Ajemfi, who filed a story last week, returns to the site. And she's joined me over the telephone. Hello, Ya.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. You have returned to the same point where you filed the story on the danger these students face. What has changed?
Okay, Kamini, I think after I did the story, a letter was written to the Ghana Education Service here at Ekropon.
Right.
And then I visited the place this afternoon, and I've been told a cover letter has also been attached to the one that was written by the school, and it's been forwarded to the Ghana Highway Authority, the regional office at Koforidua. It was done early this month, but no response has yet been heard from them. And then we are also trying to get to the headquarters to find out from the Ghana Highway Authority if anything of that sort has reached their notice, but we haven't been able to make through to them. But Temini, I tell you, the situation is still the same. But from my observation, even if the speed ramps are done or the rumble strips are done for these students, it's still risky for them because when they walk by the shoulders of the road, there's a place that dips. It dips, and that curve is so sharp and very narrow that these students with hearing impairment would not see the cars coming because they walk with their backs facing the oncoming vehicles.
Right.
So with cars touching their horns, they wouldn't even hear anything, and they are still at the risk of being knocked down by these cars. So I think that is not enough. And then in an interview with the GES, Reverend Kisi, he mentioned that it's long overdue that a rumble strip or a speed ramp is being done in these areas, but then it still would not be enough unless a school bus is acquired for these students. And he told me that previously they've made the appeal, but government has not still responded to them, and they are reiterating the appeal that government should at least get them a school bus because the 3 buses that used to fare these students are faulty now and have been packed. So they are still appealing to government that they should get these students a school bus.
Many thanks, Yaa, for that update. Yaa Fusua Jemfi joined us from Mampo in the Eastern region. She's been following a story on how the lives of the deaf and dumb students of the Senior High Technical School in the area are being endangered. You're watching News Today. When I come back, we'll do some more stories. You're welcome back to News Today. A study commissioned by the Ghana Federation of the Disabled has identified some lapses with the country's Persons with Disability Act 175 of 2006. Notable among them are the omission of the rights of women and children's rights with disability as encapsulated in the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 7 and 10. The findings and recommendations on how to synchronize the two documents were presented to the media at a news conference. Maritime has the rest of the story.
The Ghana Federation of the Disabled commissioned the study after it identified some lapses right after the act was passed. The study, according to the project officer Alexander Williams, identified 7 gaps in all.
Section 28 is again obliging civil aviation authority and any related authority to make provisions for persons with disability that will be utilizing these points of services. I know currently, for instance, the practice in Ghana by one airline, that is Amtrak, not to board a visually impaired passenger once that passenger has no guide. This is obviously an infringement upon the right of movement and the right to use the services that are being provided through the Civil Aviation Authority of Ghana. However, reading the Persons with Disabilities Act and comparing it with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, it is again evidently clear that there is no punitive measure for any authority or agency that flouts this particular section of the Act. And it therefore makes it highly difficult for the Act to be implemented alongside Articles 9(2)(b), Articles 9(2)(b), as well as Article 20(a) and (b) of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability.
The study went on to make recommendations for each of the shortcomings. Amongst them, it says, Parliament would need to provide punitive measures for agencies and authorities which breach the law.
And Article 14 of the Convention that we are proposing be included in the Persons with Disabilities Act is the right to liberty and security. This, again, is touched on significantly in the convention, and we propose that the Persons with Disabilities life to liberty and security is guaranteed in Ghana's Persons with Disabilities Act in an attempt to conform with Article 4B of the convention. Again, we are asking that the amendment also takes into consideration the provision of the Convention and Article 15 that talks about persons' abilities, freedom from torture and other degrading treatments. We do know that it is some practice within, especially institutions that house persons with psychosocial disability, to have torture as a component of a way of controlling their behavior. And this we think this we think should be actually and done away with by ensuring that an amended law actually takes into cognizance the right of persons with abilities from torture and other degrading treatments.
On the way forward, the Federation hopes to engage government and the media to ensure the Ghana Disability Law by 2015 will be complete with the necessary legislative instrument and ensure the rights of persons with disability are upheld to the letter. For Joy News, Marian Turi reporting.
Let's do some business news now. And Labour economist and lecturer at the Economics Department of the University of Ghana, Dr. William Ba Boateng, is calling for the development of an effective human capital policy to determine composition of the labour force. Speaking on Multi-TV's PM Express Wednesday, Dr. Ba Boateng noted strategies must be put in place to strengthen existing institutions which train youth in skills acquisition, including the National Vocational Training Institute.
You need to know the human capital composition of the labor force, and you have to know the kind of job that you need to create. Unless you are saying that you are creating any job, whether temporary or permanent, then you don't need to look at who is this, who is that, and so on. So we need to look at the research component of our policy. Otherwise, we'll always have problems. And we come up with strategies to strengthen the existing institutions, to train people. If the existing institutions have certain things that they are not able to meet their target and objectives, can we help them? Because I ask myself, the kind of support that we give to some of these special projects, if we give half of it to existing institutions, vocational and technical training, we have NVTI. And NVTI has been with us for a long time. And you go there and the tools, the equipment they are using are obsolete and so on. But we create a project and we give them the support and so on, but we don't know whether it is part of public sector employment. So I think we need to be clear on what we are doing. Because if you are engaging somebody, you train the person exits and comes back, or the person exits and also enter into unemployment. What are we doing? So we don't just have to come up with projects. And so we need to understand the dynamics. We need to understand the problem, the challenge, so that we can have a holistic solution to some of these things. Because as you said, 12.9% of the youth being unemployed. If you look at the actual figure, it may not be as big as we are talking about. So it means, what do we do to absorb them? And why is it that we have only 12.9%? What about the chunk of people who are in informal employment? Because 12.9 will not capture those who are selling on the street. No, because those who are selling on the street, the statistics will tell you that they are working. Mm-hmm. But that kind of work is not the best. So then can we say that we have to come up with strategies that will absorb those who are unemployed and those who are even working, but the kind of work they are doing is vulnerable, as the ILO puts it, is vulnerable employment, or they are working poor. So we need to put all these things in perspective. Otherwise, we'll come up and say, well, we are creating jobs, but we'll be throwing money into the drain.
Boateng has meanwhile called for a deliberate government policy framework based on research to guide sectors which will be supported to create jobs.
As a country, I don't think we know where we are going over the next 20 years. I don't think you know, and I don't know either. Because I expect that as a country, we need to have a blueprint. Mm-hmm. And the blueprint will tell us where we are going. Of course, I'm sure, as a person, you know that over the next 5 or 10 years, this is where I want to be. And therefore, everything that you do, you have that in mind and work towards that. We have to have the same thing as a country. We are training our students. We have basic education, secondary education, tertiary education. We have the polytechnics, we have the universities, and so on. We are training to meet the manpower needs of the economy. But what kind of manpower that the economy needs, we don't know. It will be based on the blueprint that the country has. Maybe 10, 20 years. Within the next 20 years, Ghanaians, and here it is not a government, Ghanaians have brainstormed and said, within the next 20 years, we have to change the composition of our economy for manufacturing.
Now, the Tema metropolis is set to honor individuals and corporate entities who have contributed towards the development in the area. Now, the March 1, 2014 event has already selected its board of directors for the 5th Tema Excellence Awards Foundation. Now, this board is to oversee the choosing and shortlisting of companies and individuals who have distinguished themselves in playing vital roles towards development of the metropolis.
The annual Tema Excellence Awards targets professionals of corporate establishment, public service, companies, traditional authorities and other individuals with exceptional achievements towards development in the metropolis. Chief Executive of the Foundation, Kwesi Poku Bosompim, speaks on the concept of the initiative which he started 4 years ago.
Look around, realize a few people have really distinguished themselves very well. Our Tema is getting out of hands because nobody is showing appreciation for the good jobs some few people have done. Human beings need to be appreciated when they do good things. So I sat down and said, look, what can I also do to let people, if not lift Tema, maintain it the level it used to be, so that we celebrate personalities in Tema.
Nicholas Kwabno-Poku is chairman of the newly inaugurated board for the award.
Well, the criteria will be based on what we select. If we select awareness of, say, discipline, then we would look at what kind of criteria do we want to install. So we would look at ways to make sure that this idea just doesn't stay here, but it's replicated elsewhere in the country.
The 5th Tema Excellence Awards dinner dance is slated for 1st March 2014.
Now, economic growth in Japan, the world's third largest economy, slowed to 0.5% in the July to September period, down from 0.9% in the previous quarter. The deceleration comes despite aggressive measures taken this year to spur growth after years of stagnation. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has made reviving the economy his top priority. His economic policy, known as Abenomics, include boosting stimulus and key sector reforms. Stronger growth seen earlier in the year had been driven by personal consumption, which weakened in the third quarter. Tomihiko Taniguchi, Japan's Chancellor of the Cabinet Secretariat, said that despite the recent slowdown, the Japanese economy was still on track for growth. The economy of the Eurozone grew by just 0.1% in the July to September period, down from the 0.3% growth in the previous quarter. The weak growth levels being seen in the Eurozone are among the reasons why the European Central Bank cut its main interest rate to 0.25% last week. Earlier, figures showed that France's economy shrunk 0.1% in the third quarter of the year. German growth slowed also to 0.3% from the 0.7% in the previous quarter. Figures from Italy also showed its economy shrunk by 0.1% after a 0.3% contraction in the second quarter. That'll be all for business. We'll do some sports when I return. You're welcome back to News Today, and this is the sports segment brought to you by Tigo. Now, ex-coach of Egyptian Giants Al Ahly, Maniel Hossein, let's take a look at that story. Maniel Hossein believes Egypt does not have a chance of eliminating Ghana to qualify for next year's World Cup. Ghana recorded a 6-1 score line against Egypt in the first leg of the final World Cup qualifier in Kumasi 3 weeks ago. Egypt will host the Black Stars on November 19 in the second leg of the World Cup playoff, which they have to win 5-0 if they wanted to play in the 2014 World Cup after their 6-1 defeat in Kumasi last month. The former Angloga coach has questioned the ability of the Egyptian senior team to beat Ghana 5 goals unanswered. Well, while we prepare to bring you that soundbite, you recall that the GFA had been to Togo to meet with FIFA over security arrangements for the Black Stars and supporters ahead of the November 19 match in Cairo. What is the outcome of that meeting? Kofi Nyantechi, boss of GFA, has been speaking about.
These concerns were discussed thoroughly by both parties, and FIFA appeared to have a sympathetic ear towards the issues that were raised. And so, further to the first inspection visit that was made by a team of national security officials and officials from the Federation, a second visit has been agreed upon to be made on Thursday, this week Thursday. And that visit will have the presence of the head of security of FIFA. I will be there myself. Abedi Pele will be there, subject to confirmation. Then Alaji Latte from the National Security, and then Ibrahim Sani, our communications director, will also be there. The purpose of the visit is to receive detailed provisions for security as outlined in the guarantees that the Egyptian government provided. And so their state security officials are supposed to inform or take us through a detailed security briefing outlining measures that will guarantee the security of all officials and players during the game. It will also be an opportunity for us to assess and ask questions at first hand, and then put across once again our concerns, and then see how they intend to address these concerns. After this last meeting on Thursday, if we still have any genuine grievances to put across, FIFA will then have to make a final decision.
Minister of Sports Elvis Ifeanyi has also been touching on this. Let's take a listen.
I think it went very well. We had frank, open and candid discussions. We raised the issues that were of concern to us, that even though FIFA had written to confirm Cairo as a capital and they had assured us that Egypt has given them security guarantees, we felt that we needed more and better particulars. And after the discussions, FIFA has agreed that they will organize a meeting between us and the Egyptian security officials together with the FA, so that we look at some of the concerns that have been raised. So I think on that note, we've made some progress. Let me assure Ghanaians that we are not afraid or worried about the football match itself. Let me assure Ghanaians, as I said, there is no man, woman or devil that can stop us from going to Brazil. We are going to Brazil, and no man born of a woman can stop us. But at the same time, we have to take precautions. We are going into a very volatile territory, and so we are asking relevant questions. In if scenario A, what if this? What are the guarantees? What if this? What are the measures? What if that? What have you put in place? We just want to ensure that the way we've gone through all these qualifiers without any incident will go for this final hour, which happens to be the last qualifier for the whole World Cup. We'll go through it peacefully and successfully, and then we'll prepare for Brazil. But I think that the country has got to...
Let's stay with the Black Stars. And assistant coach Maxwell Kennedy says the team's preparation towards next week's World Cup qualifier against Egypt has been good. Ghana has been training in Istanbul, Turkey since Monday to strategize for the game against the Pharaohs. The technical team received a major boost on Tuesday when Kevin Prince Boateng, Michael Essien and Awal Mohammed, as well as Adam Kwaresei, all arrived. The quartet trained with the rest of the squad on Wednesday at the Olympic Stadium in Istanbul. Maxwell Kennedy says the mood in camp looks very encouraging. Coach Kennedy noted it is their hope all that the players are learning here will be transferred onto the real game on Tuesday and hopefully get Ghana the necessary win that all Ghanaians desire. Turn attention to the Olympic Games now. An International Olympic Committee Chief Thomas Bach has warned Jamaica and Kenya risk being banned from future Olympic Games if their drugs testing programs fail to come up to scratch. Both nations' testing is being examined by the World Anti-Doping Agency. Meanwhile, Kenya's government and Olympic Federation are yet to confirm that a task force to investigate allegations of a doping culture in their setup promised 12 months ago has been established. The Olympic Charter states that all national Olympic committees must adopt and implement the World Anti-Doping Code, with competitors, coaches, trainers and all officials obliged to respect and comply in all aspects. And that'll be all for sports, brought to you by Tigo. You're welcome back. Let's check out news from across the globe. The United States has named Nigerian-based militant groups Boko Haram and Ansaru as foreign terrorist organizations. The State Department described the move as an important step to help Nigeria root out violent extremism. It means U.S. regulatory agencies are instructed to block business and financial transactions with the groups. Boko Haram began its insurgency in 2009 and targets both the military as well as civilians, including schools, and frequently clashes with the Nigerian armed forces. U.S. officials blame Boko Haram for a 2011 attack on a UN building in Abuja that killed 21 people. Irbad Ibrahim is an international news analyst. He's joined us over the telephone. We'll try and analyze this step taken by the United States. Hello, Irbad.
Good afternoon, Germany.
Good afternoon to you too. But this move by the U.S., is it the best?
Yeah, it is positive. But even though the U.S. State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki has hailed such a move as an important step, I think it's a double-edged sword. The results will be quite ambivalent. On the positive side, such a move will be a great boon for the Nigerian military.
Right.
Now, what this means is that the CIA will now willingly share intelligence, expertise, and technology with Nigeria. And therefore, it will have ripple effects on the sub-region. Even though Nigeria is not a hostile neighbor to any other country in the sub-region, it will come out of this crisis a much more formidable country, and it will continue to militarily dominate the sub-region. So maybe Ghana stands to lose in one way or another, or any other West African country, because Nigeria is going to get ever more stronger than any other military in the sub-region. But for the United States, Boko Haram is pretty much an appendage of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, AQIM. Only last week, AQIM issued a communique expressing its willingness and capability to now attack Western targets. So one will not be far from right to assume that there is a seeming nexus between such a threat and then the enlisting of Boko Haram and Ansaru as terrorist groups. But on the other hand, Boko Haram stands to gain from such an enlistment. One, internationally, the group's profile will now be boosted exponentially. To be mentioned side by side with strong terrorist brands like Al-Qaeda, the Nusra Front, etc., means that you have come of age, and therefore you qualify to be part of the Hall of Fame of global jihad. So this will, in the final analysis, attract funding from oil-rich sheikhs in the Gulf who have got extra bucks to spend. So we should expect seeing more sophisticated weapons in the hands of Boko Haram in the next few months, because the Arabs will be pumping in money to support the insurgency. And then secondly, Boko Haram will now have a much more effective narrative to use as a bargaining chip for their recruitment bonanza. They will say that the Americans have now entered the fray to help Nigeria in its fight against Islam. And such a propaganda can cajole the young people in the northern part of the country to swell up the ranks of Boko Haram to continue the fight.
Right.
But by and large, speaking from a sub-regional point of view, I think such a move does not bode well for the security of West Africa. I say so because if the sub-region becomes America's next battlefield against jihadists, then we should brace ourselves for American drone attacks like the ones we are seeing in Pakistan and Yemen, as well as American commando raids like the one that killed Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, Pakistan. So if that happens, then the sovereignty and territorial integrity of most West African countries will be breached.
I see. Many thanks, Irbad, for that. Irbad Ibrahim is an international news analyst. Let's move on to some other story. You're welcome back to News Today. And Showbiz can confirm for a fact the news that the FOK and boys have shaved your dreadlocks. It's not just speculation, but truth. Take a look at this.
like we a dream, oh. The things we they work for, fight for, live for, die for. Chalebi, oh. One house on the mountain.
When news and their picture went viral on the internet that they had shaved their long years of nurtured dreadlocks, many thought they were mere rumors. But when showbiz caught up with the FLKN boys, they confirmed and explained why they had their dreadlocks shaved.
I want to go to somebody's shop just to say I want to urinate, just like that. And one love said that, okay, if we go out, we should say that we want to cut our hair. Then they'll say at least we are using their service before we use their services, the toiletries. So we just started to say, oh, please, we'll cut our hair. When we finish, we'll just urinate there. Now we see now the barber has just put the machine there. But the way he cut it was too fast. So by the time one of realized, we had to run away.
You still are a Rasta man. You still have a Rasta on.
No, please. If I was a Rasta, I would never use a scissors or a blade against my head. It's in the Bible, Nazareth, something, something, something. So I'm not a Rasta. That one, yeah, please, I beg you.
The FLKN boys are meanwhile entreating all their fans to meet them at the National Theatre this December 23 for the premiering of their Cause of Money Part 2. Don't miss it.
What a duo. You're watching News Today, our main news again. Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly deny receipt of a court order asking them to vacate the Kejetia bus terminal and restore its management to Frico FD Limited. Labour economist and lecturer at Department of Economics at the University of Ghana calls for deliberate government policy and framework based on research to guide sectors of the economy. International news and more news on myjoyonline.com. Many thanks for your company. My name is Kemini Nyamani Amana. Goodbye.